The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back, Comfortably Zoned, the Nevada Pine Tar, the podcast. I'm Ralph Tycho, the co-host, and my co-author of the book is George Grimm. Welcome back, George.
Thank you, Ralph. Good to be here.
Good to have you. We have a special guest. She's featured in the book, and we have developed a great friendship over the years. Sherry Davis, meet George Grimm, and welcome back to the podcast network. Love your company.
Thank you. Same here.
Good. For those of you who don't know, Sherry was the first female public address announcer in baseball history. You have a display in the Hall of Fame dedicated to your dear old self. And I want you to tell George and the audience how that came about.
How I got the job? Well, the Giants at the end of 92 were all set to move out of the Bay Area. It was very upsetting. And a local group headed by Peter McGowan and a few others rushed in and saved the Giants for San Francisco. And they made a lot of changes. And one of the things they did was have an open audition for the PA job. Well, I hadn't really planned on going, but I woke up that day and it was a beautiful day. It was a great day, spring day. And they had been making changes to the ballpark. So I just thought, oh, heck, I'm going to call in sick just and sit in the ballpark for a few hours. So I got there, and it turns out that 500 people showed up.
Okay.
And of those 500, only 8 were women. And that annoyed me. I went there not expecting to get the job. I went there. I wanted to hear my voice of the PA system. It was just a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
So I was a little annoyed by that. And then an hour and a half goes by, and I haven't heard a woman's voice. And finally comes a woman, and she goes, "Now batting, left fielder Barry Sweet Buns Bonds." And that just tore my head off.
Yeah, you don't need that.
Oh, to have the only woman's voice present herself as a bimbo. You know, if there were even 50 women, I could accept one woman doing that. But being the only woman, I was very distraught. So I got up there, and you only announced 2 batters. And I was determined to, announce them. And I announced them, and I got applause.
Wow.
I was the only person while I was there that got applause. Maybe somebody after me did, but I was kind of shocked. And I was walking back to my section where I'd been sitting for a couple of hours. And guys were going, "Is that you? That was a good voice." And when I was leaving my section, they were chanting my number, 161, 161. And leaving the stadium, I've only had this feeling 3 times in my life of walking on air. I couldn't feel my feet hit the ground. And I was just so in turmoil because I was a full-time legal secretary, and I worked for the attorney who had the most billable hours in the whole firm. It was a litigation desk. It was strenuous. And I thought, there are a lot of day games. How on earth am I going to do this and have a full-time job? In the back of my mind, I knew that I would, if it were offered me, I would without a doubt take it. I don't care what happened. So a week or so later, I got a call, and 9 of us were called back. And of the 9, 7 either had voice training or worked in a voice-related field. I had been an actress since I was 9 years old, and studied theater in college and had multiple speech classes and training. So it really showed. It really showed. When you were sitting there in the stands, you'd hear 10, 15 voices, and then you go, oh, that's a good voice. Training really, really, really helps.
Yeah. Tell us about your acting experience.
Well, I was a ballerina from age 4, and at 9 years old, I went to my first play, and I decided that's what I was going to do, and I just started right there. I majored in it in college. I'm moving, and I'm going through a lot of things, and I found an old playbill from when I did community theater in Virginia when I was young. I was just in the dancing chorus, mainly in musicals. But David Carradine was in the Army at the time at Fort Eustis, I believe it was. And I was in 3 or 4 shows with him, and I found a playbill where he did caricatures of everyone in the cast. And there was a caricature of me done by David Carradine. So,
wow.
And then once I graduated from college, I did community theater for a year. Then I had to go from Newport News to Norfolk to do the kind of theater I wanted to do, the more avant-garde theater, the more groundbreaking theater. So for 3 or 4 years, I'd go back and forth over that. I'd work all day in the shipyard, which everybody did in Newport News. And then I would drive 30 miles every night to Norfolk to either rehearse or perform. It was a repertory theater, so you were always doing something. I did that with Norfolk Theater Center and then with Chrysler Museum Actors Theater. And then finally, I'd done as much as I could do in Virginia, and I really needed to broaden my horizons. And that's when I moved out to California and lived in a treehouse in the Redwoods and did children's theater. And then that evolved into another repertory company there, Bear Republic. And then I got with a street performing group, the Screaming Mimes. And the street performances turned into cabaret. And we ended up moving to San Francisco in 1980 and playing all the clubs in town, the boarding house, the other cafe, places like that. And then after I left them, I did a few things here and there, nothing of great import, but some fun things. So that's been pretty much it.
How'd you get to the legal profession from there?
Well, I always did secretarial work every summer when I was in college, or even before I went to college. Every summer I worked at one of the military installations in Virginia. I worked at Fort Eustis, Fort Monroe, Yorktown Coast Guard Station. I was a very good secretary. I have strong English skills and very nimble fingers. I played piano for years, so I typed over 100 words a minute, and it paid well. It was better than waiting tables, which is the traditional theater job.
Right. Your day job, so to speak. You actually enjoyed your day job, which is very good going through life if you're an aspiring anything to enjoy what it is that keeps you alive. So it's not a grudge.
Right.
For sure, that's right.
It depends on the firm you work for, though. I've had good and bad. When I got the Giants job, I had a really good firm, and I was reluctant to leave it, but they couldn't support me doing that. So I had to go to a larger firm that could accommodate my schedule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The original firm that you worked for when you got the job, were they supportive at all?
Oh, yes. Even though I called in sick and got caught. By the time I left that second audition and the news broke as soon as I got the job, the news broke. And when I got back to the office, they had created a party for me. They had brought in hot dogs and different ballpark kind of food. And they'd had to take a secretary off another desk just to answer my phone because I was getting calls from the New York Times and People Magazine and the LA Times and all kinds of things. So, yes, they were very supportive. Except they really couldn't accommodate my schedule because I was on such a heavy desk that it was hard. You know, it was a burden on them to have to. They weren't a large enough firm that they had a permanent floater or anything. You know.
Right.
Okay. I just want to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to put you with George.
Okay.
Tell me about Chili the cat.
Oh, bless Chili. I lost Chili this past year, but I had a big orange cat.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, I know. He was 17, bless his heart, and I always loved when my last name is Davis, so when I'd take him to the vet, they'd call out for Chili Davis. I'm the only one who got it. I always got a little chuckle out of it.
Now you got to announce Chili Davis. That was pretty cool.
I don't think I ever did get to announce Chili.
Oh, okay. He was a little before your time.
Yeah, and he was working with other teams at the time as a hitting coach. So I didn't really get a chance to oh man, I would have loved to.
That would be cool. Well, I won't ask you about the Will Clark interaction. Or I will. He was your favorite player.
Well, he was really the best that first year. Because he would tease me and he would joke with me and he would kid me, which is, you know, in baseball that's the highest form of acceptance. When at the end of the first year, we went on I went on a road trip with the Giants, and we went to Chicago, Pennsylvania, and Milwaukee, I think. So when we were in Pennsylvania, I was up in the booth with just hanging with their PA announcer, and the organist had not shown up that night. And it was the seventh inning stretch, and he says, I'm going to play the piano. Why don't you introduce the seventh inning stretch? I said, fine. So I was doing that, and Will pops out of the dugout and looks up and finds me up on there, and he like waves his arm like, get out, get away. And I saw when I got back to the hotel, I saw him at the elevator. I said, you ever do that again and I'll sing that thing. And he said, oh, you wouldn't do that. Yeah, Will was a lot of fun. He put you at ease, you know.
He put me at ease when I signed him to his first Topps baseball card contract.
Oh, cool.
In Fresno, his rookie year, naturally. And he was the most unassuming fellow for a superstar to be. He was terrific. And I followed him. I enjoyed his career, and I was sorry to see them trade him. Or he left free agency or whatever it was.
I always hated when they went away. When Matt Williams got traded on my birthday one year, November 13th, I just sat at my desk and cried.
Okay. George, take it. What are you curious about?
Would you be able to tell me what your first impression of Ralph was when you met him online while you were waiting for the audition?
I don't think we ever met online, but I was auditioning.
No, I mean waiting online. Waiting online to get into the audition, right? You were waiting together, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, we didn't meet till much later.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I was under the impression you were, on the same line because Ralph wanted to give his Bob Shepard invitation, and I thought
and that cost me any chance of getting it. I got up there.
I know, but there were some fun things. Were you there when the guy did it in a Jack Nicholson voice? That was pretty good.
Oh, no.
And then there was a guy who did the Lou Gehrig speech. Today I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. You know, there were some fun things there that day. And it was
with the echo too, you know, today.
It was pretty repetitive, so we needed that, Ralph.
Can I tell you guys something? My mother attended that game, the Lou Gehrig speech in 1949.
Oh my gosh.
She was like yourself, a secretary, and living in Mount Kisco, New York. Copped some tickets for some reason, and I had no idea she was involved with that at all. I didn't look at her as a baseball fan growing up, but when I came home from school in 1956, and Don Larson was in the final inning or two of his perfect game. And my mom and I watched that, and she said, "You think that's good?" And I did. There was Yogi jumping into his arms. I attended the famous Lou Gehrig Day, and
did she say that she was moved by it? Was she tremendously moved by it?
I don't remember. I was probably more moved by it than she was. And that day goes down as one of the closest times I ever had with my mother, because and that memory of like I say, Yogi jumping into Don Lawson's arms.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting older. Don Lawson passed away in the last year or two. Yogi is gone. It's the way of things. What can I tell you? But I just had to interject that, and
that's very cool.
That was
one day in '49 when they had Lou Gehrig Day. They retired his number. That was the first number retired in Major League Baseball.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Interesting. Thanks.
George is
that's a good
writer.
trivia question.
George is a hockey writer by trade, and he wrote a column about retired numbers not long ago. And to the listening audience, if you ever want to read, if you're interested in hockey, if you ever want to read a great article that George Grimm is your man. And George Grimm wrote a book with me that Peter Golenbach said was brilliantly written. So we'll go by that. And
who way to argue? You know, we shouldn't argue with Peter Golenbach.
We're not going to blow against the wind. We had a great time writing the book, George. And one of the things that I liked, I'd present podcasts to you, and you were so enthralled with Sherry's story. How great a story it is to be to write about a pioneer. And what was it like? I'll interrupt George for a second. What was it like when you were honored at the Hall of Fame? How did that make you feel?
That was very humbling. I get a little teary-eyed when I think about it. I mean, I went to the opening ceremony. It's the Diamond Dreams. It's the section of the hall devoted to women. And there were all these women from the All-American Girls, you know, the Peaches and the Rockford Peaches and so forth. And they were spitfires, I'll tell you. They were wonderful. And Isla Borders was there. I don't know, the first woman, I think, to pitch in the minor leagues and what have you. And it was very, very humbling. I still have mixed feelings about it. I'm very, very honored, but gosh, it's a little overwhelming still.
Yeah. Where do your mixed feelings come in?
Well, there's so many great players in all the years of the games who aren't recognized in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. It's just I just feel tremendously humbled by it. I don't know how to express it any other way.
George.
Yeah, was there ever a time, after you had the job for a while and you're sitting up there in the catbird seat, as Red Barber would say, and you just looked around and said, "How did I get here? But this is so cool. How did I get here? How did this happen?" Did you ever just marvel at where you were at the time and how you got there and how lucky you were?
Oh, I marveled every day. One of the greatest joys of the job was getting to be in the ballpark before it was open to the rest of the public. It's just a very special feeling when it's just the guys down on the field being guys, playing around and doing their work, and there's a quiet, there's music, but there's a stillness still to the stadium. Every day I felt blessed.
Good.
Did the players ask you to introduce them in a certain way, or did they have any input as to what went on in your booth?
Not so much. No, I never had a play. Did I ever tell you about Tavares? His first year was my first year. And I went to him at the play ball luncheon, and I said, Julian Tavares. He says, no, I want Julian. He said, Julian sounds like a girl, and I wanted American. So I always announced him that way, but I got so many hate letters from Hispanics saying, you don't know what you're doing. It should be Julian, what have you. I have a funny story about King Caminetti. And if I ever had people tell me two different pronunciations of a name, I'd go to the player. I'd call down into the clubhouse, or I'd go down on the field and ask. So I went down I had heard Caminiti and Caminetti. So I went down on the field, and he was walking by with another person. I said, "Excuse me, and he just kind of brushed me off. And the person went away, and he went over to the dugout to put his stuff down. So I followed him to the dugout, and he put his stuff down. And he turned around, and he looked at me, and he gave me this exasperated look. And I said, "Look, I'm the PA announcer. Is it Caminiti or Caminetti?" He said, Caminetti. And I turned, and I was walking away, and I heard this little voice saying, "Thanks for asking."
That's funny.
I learned something. I thought all these years, I thought it was Caminiti. I learned something this very moment.
Yeah. Another interesting thing which I liked was the player. There's one player who either you pronounce both of his names in an English way or a Hispanic way, and that's Angel Concepcion or Angel Conception.
Okay.
So of course you went with Angel. That's much prettier.
And so is Concepcion, if you think about it.
Yes.
It sounds an awful lot better, easier on the ear. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
George, take over, and I want to ask Sherry one final question when you're done, if you would.
Okay, what about now? How many women PA announcers are there in Major League Baseball or in any sport?
As far as I know, there are only two.
Okay.
The Giants and the A's, as far as I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so it's a California thing. Okay, cool.
Yeah, well, my second year, '94, the Boston Red Sox had a woman PA announcer, Leslie Sterling,
Okay.
but she only lasted for a year. And that same year, the Dallas Stars, the hockey team, had a woman announcer. And I talked with both of them, and gave them all the advice I could, like don't listen to talk radio for 3 months, don't open letters that don't have return addresses, things like that.
Okay, what about being taken seriously? How long did it take you to be, in your mind, being taken seriously rather than thought of as a novelty by the people in the sport?
It depended on the people. The old guys, the ones that used to be there with a little stogie in their mouths. After my first year, I'd see them, I'd talk to them. I'd say, well, what do you think? He said, well, I wasn't crazy about the idea, but you know what you're doing. As long as you know what you're doing, you're fine with us. It was primarily young guys that felt threatened or didn't like a woman having authority in the ballpark. On the talk radio, I heard more than once, I go to the ballpark to get away from women.
Really?
So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, if you said I go to the golf course to get away from and just insert any minority there, you'd be thrown off the air. But, everybody laughed. Yeah. So, sexism still isn't taken seriously as something that's destructive. It's still kind of funny to a lot of people.
Yeah. They don't take it seriously, right?
Yeah, they don't. They don't see it as hurtful.
Hurtful, yeah. They don't see the other person getting hurt, no.
Yeah, no.
That's a shame.
Sherry, was there anyone that was particularly crude to you and you came away with a real bad taste in your mouth from dealing with them?
I don't really like to badmouth anybody, but this one was kind of funny. I was at spring training. I hadn't even announced a game yet. It was 93. By the way, I went to spring training every year, starting from Will Clark's rookie year. Every year, spring training was my vacation. So a few rows behind me in the stands was George Will. And people said, "Oh, Sherry, you should go introduce yourself." Okay, so I went up to George and I said, "Mr. Will, I know you're a traditionalist. What do you think of a woman announcer?" I told him who I was. So he looked at me and he flicked his wrist at me and says, "It doesn't bother me," while he's flicking his wrist, and he turned his back on me. Flicked his wrist and turned his back on me. Well, obviously it did bother him.
Sherry, you're going to love our story about George Will.
Oh,
yeah, you want to tell her, Ralph? Go ahead.
I want to tell it because
you tell it.
We start writing the book, and it came to our attention. We realized that the book had been written before by George Will. He had the same idea basically as we did. And we both, in the same conversation, said, yes, he did, but his book was so unbearably dull that no one could read it. And the only reason it was published was because his name, George Will. Mm-hmm. He had the right idea in every way, and the people that he interviewed, it just went dumb. We couldn't understand, and our goal in writing the book was to make George Will George Will. We said that someday they're going to say George Will is the poor man's George Grimm. And when the book is done, and I got to say, it worked. Gave us something to laugh at and something to compare. We could do better, we thought, and we were driven by that, and it gave us confidence because right away we were putting together things that made George Will's book seem dull.
Well, you know, if you have anything to do with baseball and you don't infuse it with a sense of humor, you're missing the whole point of baseball. Because when you're a baseball player and you fail more times than you succeed, you've got to have a sense of humor, and that's what I truly love about baseball is the joy in it and the humor in it. And when you get too serious about it, you kind of drain some of that joy away, you know?
Well, he is not, George Will is not a joyful person, as witnessed by your story, Sherry. So it's not just us. And at first I thought, well, I'm prejudiced because his politics suck. Pure and simple. And in my mind. And I think that was what was influencing my prejudice, but it wasn't that at all, as witnessed by your story. He is the type of person that shouldn't have written a baseball book. Let's put it that way.
Right.
But you gave us a hard. We were laughing when you talking about George Will. We just both broke up, and so that's great. Anything you want to add to it, George? And then I'll ask Sherry the final question.
Oh, no, I really enjoyed this podcast. Really enjoyed talking to you, Sherry.
Thank you, George.
And I enjoyed your podcast with Ralph the first time around that I transcribed, and it was really good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm reminded by that. Sherry, write me your address on Facebook, and I'll send you a book. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Because again, you're featured, and it wouldn't be the same without you. Sherry, I'm going to ask you a question that I've been putting off, and I didn't know how to word it. Tell me about your ending with the Giants.
Well, it was not pleasant. I was never contacted by them directly. They held auditions for my job before they even told me I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
They didn't speak well of me in the press. All they had to do was say, "We appreciate everything Sherry's done. We're going to a new ballpark. We want a new voice." That's all they had to do. But they denigrated me in the press, and they've never invited me back to the ballpark for any event. There's no record of me at the new ballpark at all. Like I never existed. I've been kind of written out of history, which is sad because I still love the Giants. I still follow the Giants. They're still my team. I have a great deal of affection for them. I'm still a fan. So it was a little disheartening.
Good. Would you name a name?
Would I do what? Would
you name a name of the person?
No.
Okay.
No, I won't. I won't do that. There's no. I've forgiven them for that. I've let it go. You know, I can't carry that in my heart. You know, I carry the good. I appreciate that they gave me the job. You know, and it was a wonderful experience. And I just want to focus on the positive.
Good. Beautiful. I love it that you took the high road. That's very nice. Sherry, thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you so much. Thank you, George. It was a pleasure.
Okay. this one was one of our best, George.
Yeah, it was. Well, thanks to Sherry, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And George Will. And George Will. Don't forget George Will.
God bless you, George Will. You were an inspiration. And you are, George Grimm, you are definitely top of the line. And Sherry, again, we'll meet up. You send me your address. I'll get you the book and write a nice review about it.
Okay, my dear. Will
All
do.
right. I can't wait to see you. You moved to Orinda, closer.
Yes. Closer. So we need to get together. It's been years.
Yeah, it has been, and I still go through a book that you gave me about fantasy baseball. I can't think of the name of it right now.
Oh, the Universal Baseball Association?
Universal, yes.
Oh, I love that book. Love that book.
And I think of you whenever I open it.
Good. Yeah, it's one of my faves.
Beautiful. Sherry, we'll talk again real soon. George, you know we will. And it's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. The name of the show is Comfortably Zoned in Nevada Pine Tar, which is the name of the book. And it's available on Amazon. And George Will had nothing to do with this. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right.
We're over
Happy
now.
holidays. Merry Christmas.
Yes. Talk soon. Adios and happy trails.
All right. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices, and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.